Welcome to Reckless, from Wildflower Rooted and Reckless, the podcast where Angela Walker sets dumpster fires and lets her light shine. Unafraid of hard conversations, this is where perspectives are challenged, minds are opened, and respect is the rule. Because agree to disagree is more than a motto.
Welcome to a Reckless from Wildflower Rooted and Reckless podcast. I am Angela Walker. Today, we are going to talk about the goose stage. I just finished an incredible coaching session with my Enneagram coach. We'll talk about that another day. But something that I have been working through is going through metamorphosis, not to be confused with menopause or perimenopause, which is a real thing in my life as well, but metamorphosis. And sort of to backtrack this, kind of set the stage, if you will, a little story time. My teenagers, like 3 of my teenagers graduated from high school, class of 2024. And that was a huge change for me. Also, I felt like I was beating my head against doors. I love to volunteer and I love to be involved. And I always wanted my kids, when they, looked around, I wanted to be there. I wanted them to know that no matter what in this world, they've always got a huge fan in me, always. And so I really strived to be intentional about making that a priority. And I was super blessed in life that I was able to do that and be there for them and be able to really, truly focus on them. When they graduated, a few things happened, right? As they went through high school, they obviously became more independent. They also made terrible choices sometimes. I mean, not like terrible, like prison choices, but like, questionable choices. Okay. Got to find out some statute of limitations before we go too far on that. Also, for the younger ones, I was volunteering in their organizations and things that they were doing. And I found that during times where I thought people would be like, high five, good job, or you did the right thing, people were actually like, don't do that. And it caused disruption, and that disruption caused animosity and anger and uncomfortableness. Okay. And so I really withdrew. I withdrew from those organizations. I also really struggled with the high schoolers. They make a mistake and it was treated as if like things that could have been teaching moments. Okay. Things that could have been lessons in these kids' lives turned into mountains. Okay. Mountains. And even though I tried to handle things the right way, oftentimes it was not well received. And I guess maybe it's my interpretation of the right way, but they're my kids. I get to have that interpretation, right? And so it wasn't well received. And I just took this big step back, and sometimes not even by my children. And I took this big step back and I was so lost, to be honest with you, so lost. I felt like I just wasn't, I don't want to say measuring up. Nothing was matching up. Okay. The effort that I was putting forth did not match the attention that I was receiving. Like, this was not positive attention sometimes, a lot of times. And it just seemed like no matter what, it just was such a conundrum. And so I went inside of myself. I took a step back from everything and said, I have to figure out me. I got to figure out what's going on with me. I have been mom. I have been wife. I have been advocate. I have been foster parent. I have been relative caregiver. I have been all of these things. But what I have not been is me. And so I needed to go inside to figure out who that was. And that's exactly what I did. Essentially recoiled and I built a cocoon around myself, or a chrysalis around myself. Okay. And I laugh because, I mean, just to be sciencey, okay, a moth, certain moths, like silkworms, they spin a cocoon out of silk. Okay. And this is a whole rabbit hole you can go down to, because yes, there are silkworm farms where they basically mass breed silkworms to create silk. So if you're wearing silk right now, it probably came from one of those worms in Japan, I think it was. Anyway, if you're a butterfly, you form a chrysalis, and it is formed of your own shedded skin, my friends. Okay. And it is a protective layer. But what nobody wants to talk about, and inside of that chrysalis, you undergo metamorphosis and you come out this beautiful butterfly. And that is the story we all hear, we all talk about, we all see, right? Those are the images that we see. Cute little pudgy caterpillar turns into a chrysalis and emerges a butterfly, right? But what nobody talks about is what is happening inside the cocoon. I just like the word cocoon better. So I'm sorry, science geeks, it's cocoon today. What nobody talks about is what's going on inside of there, right? It turns into goo. It is goo soup, okay? There are like imaginal discs that are like predetermined structures that help rebuild into the butterfly. Man, if you're a science freak and you love insects and bugs, I apologize, because I'm probably going to get some of this wrong, but just like in a roundabout way. If you're super into this and you want to know more, you should definitely fact check me, and you should do your own research and go down your own rabbit holes. But I'm just going to basically summarize what I can kind of remember and correlate through this. So basically, the entire caterpillar turns to freaking goo, and it's like unassigned cells, and it is just mush in there, and everything is restructuring and reprogramming. But the brain arguably keeps core memories. And this is why when the butterfly emerges, it knows which leaves are poisonous, because it learned that as a caterpillar. And so it doesn't have to start over from infancy, right? It retains those memories. This is just so parallels with life. And so in that goo stage is where I was. In that goo soup is where I was trying to find myself and trying to rebuild who I was. And I kept a lot of those memories of what made people happy and what did not. And it can become really hard to stand in your own truth and have that emergence of a butterfly. And it is during this goo soup stage that there is so much deep reflection. So much going through experiences, the filing cabinet of the mind, if you will, and trying to figure out what goes where. And it's during the goose soup that there is so much deep self-reflection, and it's really just preparing for the emergence of the butterfly or moth. Fine, it'll be a moth since it's a cocoon, but that's silk. Let's not do that. Did you know that they boil the silk cocoons to retrieve the silk? The silk can be up to a mile long. It's a single thread, and it can be up to a mile long. Okay, I digress. And it's in this goo soup that
You've been listening to
there's
a
so much deep
Wildflower Rooted
reflection.
and Reckless podcast
And I don't know
production
what the
with Angela
caterpillar
Walker.
goes through
Catch
as it's
Wildflower
becoming the
drops on
butterfly.
Tuesdays. Rooted on Wednesdays,
probably just
and Reckless on Thursdays. Subscribe wherever you
flatline,
listen.
non-emotional.
Stay wild, stay rooted, stay
People do
reckless.
ask, can they feel pain? And the answer is that they don't feel pain in the same way that we do. They don't feel pain in the same, or like they don't have the same experience. The example was given, if a butterfly loses a leg or breaks a leg, it doesn't limp. It doesn't show any sort of favoring of that injured limb. And so the idea is that they just don't experience pain in the same way we do. Obviously, we'll never know. The butterflies will never tell us, so we're never going to know this. But I cannot imagine that it's super comfortable, to be honest with you. And they willingly go or instinctually go, and they shed this outer skin, and basically this hormone, what do you know? This hormone goes into overdrive and creates the hardness of what becomes the chrysalis. So they're protected in there. And then they turn into that goo soup. Their body just completely breaks down. This enzyme goes into action, breaks down their body until it's just a total goopy mess. And it is a mess in there. It is a freaking mess in there. And that is where it was a mess in my cocoon. And just trying to figure out, like trying to find a good fitting pair of jeans, like a good fitting pair of jeans. Doesn't have that gap in the back that shows your butt crack, and nice on the waist, hugs the butt, gives some curve appeal, all that fun stuff. You can try on 40 pairs of jeans to find that, right? I mean, I guess there's some people that can go try on one pair of jeans or don't even have to try them on, but I got to try on at least 40 pairs of jeans. And even then, I don't know if it's going to work out. So it was just a sloppy, gooey mess of trying to rediscover myself and figure out who I am in this stage of life. I share this because I feel like it is so not talked about. And I know I'm not the only one who has experienced it or is experiencing it. And so I just want, if you're in the goo stage, if you don't know you're in the goo stage and you're hearing this and you're like, oh my gosh, this resonates with me. Like, I'm in the goo stage. It's okay. It's okay, because what happens is there's a rebuild, right? There's a reset. You bust out of that chrysalis and you have these like weird little wings that they're not quite it yet. It's okay. They're just not quite there yet, and that's okay. And they're unfurling. They're opening up, and the blood starts pumping through them, and they start to flap. And right now, for me, I definitely feel like I am the newly emerged butterfly. And I got the little, like, ain't quite happening for it yet, or ain't quite happening for me yet wings. Okay? Like, the blood's just not quite pumping through them yet. But that is what I am working towards. It is a work in progress. And that is what I'm learning. And I'm learning to stand in my truth. And part of me is doing that through these podcasts, which is just wild to me. I am if you're familiar at all with the Enneagrams, I'm a type 9. I like to stay on the outskirts. I don't like to be center stage. But if I am intentional of stepping out of my comfort zone, it can push me to pump that blood through those wings. That is a huge part of why I'm here and why I'm doing this. It's a story of becoming, and we're all always becoming. Here's the other thing. Butterflies live for like, a couple weeks? And then, this is a constant process is what I'm getting at, right? Like cute little caterpillars. Sometimes they're not very cute. Sometimes they're all like thorny and scary looking, and sometimes they're all fiery and toxic. Okay. But they go into their little safe space. They go into their cocoon and turn to that goo and then they emerge this butterfly. And this is a constant cycle, right? And so if you are that caterpillar, if you are inside the cocoon and you are just a gooey, ooey, yucky mess, you have to know that the next thing is the butterfly. And you're not, I mean, maybe you are, but probably you're not just going to bust out like, boom, bitches, like, let's fly. You're probably going to come out with like little wrinkled wings and like, what the heck just happened? And you got to let that blood flow. All right. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody. Don't be afraid to get help with that. And you got to let that blood flow and get pumping, and so you can get those wings moving. And so with that, wraps up this episode of Reckless, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
You've been listening to a Wildflower Rooted and Reckless podcast production with Angela Walker. Catch Wildflower Drops on Tuesdays, Rooted on Wednesdays, and Reckless on Thursdays. Subscribe wherever you listen. Stay wild, stay rooted, stay reckless.